Bob Thompson. Why should everybody acquire real estate?
I think ultimately it's one of the easiest forms to create long-term wealth at the end of the day, whether it's through rental property, whether it's through flipping, or quite honestly, even if it's just owning your own piece of property, that you can pass that on to your children. And if you've made your payments on time and done what you're supposed to do, then they'll have a very nice property they can make some good money off of when and if they decide to sell it, once you get to a certain age, or God forbid, when you pass away. I mean, it's an easy no-brainer.
How did this whole journey start? Because it's not the first thing you did, right?
No, I was actually a chemist for 9 years, and I went full-time as a real estate agent at the age of 35 in 2007 in the middle of our recession. Basically, what happened is I got to the point where I've got 15 bosses. I'm not going to make any more money than what I'm making. I'm working night shifts, 12-hour shifts. I'm absolutely miserable. And I just kind of had that epiphany of, this isn't going to work. I've got to find something else to do. And then I got into real estate. I actually bought several properties. And what I found was I enjoyed the hunt way more. I enjoyed the negotiation, the looking for the property, all of that stuff. Didn't really like owning rental property because, quite honestly, I was trying to be my own landlord, and I was way too nice to be my own landlord. So I just discovered that this is something that I fell in love with and was passionate about. And here we are 21 plus years later. I'm still rocking and rolling. So clearly I've managed to do something right along the way.
Definitely. But when I think about real estate, maybe it's because I never really think about it, but I have a lot of numbers in my head that you need to look out for a lot. You need to calculate if it's really worth buying a house or an accommodation or whatever. So what is the easiest way to navigate to this first real estate that you buy yourself? What should everybody look out for when they want to get into building this wealth for later?
I think you have to get into it and do it for the right reasons. I mean, not everybody is going to want to own real estate. And let's be honest, not everybody is at a time in their life where it's a good idea. If you're still young and traveling and you don't know where you're going to end up at in terms of, what city you're going to be in or something like that, maybe real estate is not the best thing for you to do. Maybe it's not a good time for you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it's got to be much like anything else. What are you passionate about? What are you looking for? You can also do what's known as a real estate trust, to where you could go in with other investors and purchase, let's say, an apartment complex or something of that nature. But everybody has things that they're into. I got a buddy of mine that's heavily involved in the stock market, and other than his own personal home, doesn't own any property at all because it's not something he particularly cares about or cares for. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think you always have to go with what excites you, what gets you out of bed in the morning. And sometimes that includes your investments, or maybe you're a set it and forget it guy, which is, okay, I'm going to send this over to my stockbroker guy. I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to let this money ride for the next 30 years. Everybody's a little bit different, and there is no absolutes, not in wealth building, and quite honestly, not in most careers either, from what I've found.
Wow. Okay. So how do you know that the time is right? Is there any key principles you should look out for? Is there a minimum amount of money you need to have to start with it?
Not really. Typically, like at least of all in the States, we'll say you can purchase your own home for a very cheap price point. Obviously, you've got to have a good credit score, but you can start with something simple, whether it's a townhouse or a condo, which of course would be an attached property. So you can still buy something fairly cheap in the States. Or if you wanted to go a different direction, if you were able to get, let's say, a hard money loan and you had good credit, then you could go ahead and buy something and fix it up and turn around and flip it. So it just kind of depends on where you want to start. And again, it's to me, it's always been more about how much emotional capital and how much intellectual capital do you want to put into something? Because quite honestly, I can take $100 and then buy into a real estate investment trust. Certainly, I'm not going to make a whole lot of money coming back to me, but I'm still going to get a dividend, much like I would if I was to take that same $100 and put it in stock. Or heck, this day and age, you and I both know I could go buy collectibles and let them sit for 30 years and make money. I mean, it's all relative to some extent. I mean, I think it is. I think obviously in the States, we're more focused on owning real estate because our society has always been built in that direction. And that's just kind of how it works in the States. And I think that will always stay that way. So I think that, again, it comes down to where you are. Obviously, when it comes to owning your own personal home, I think you've got to be somewhat stationary. To me, there's no real point in owning a home if you're not going to be in it. I mean, again, you can rent it out and do all of that, but most of the time it's the classic, okay, now I'm married, now we're going to have some kids. I'm going to be working at this local job for the next 20 years. Let's go ahead and buy something and get some good equity off of it. But not everybody's like that. I've got a friend of mine who's also a past client who been in the Navy for almost 20 years. And every single time she moves to a new part of the country, she buys another property. She rents the one she currently owns out. And then she's got one in Chicago. She's got one in Virginia, and she's got one in California. Because every time she's done a major transfer with the military, she'll go ahead and buy another house and then continue to rent those out. And she's got the emotional capital and the bandwidth to make those decisions. Not everybody does.
How much amount of work is it when you really start to be a landlord for other people?
I think it also depends on if you're going to farm that job out. So in her case, she's got a local landlord here that does all the paperwork for her, make sure the house is taken care of, make sure the tenant is paying the rent on time. If anything, property management is an interesting thing because it's a very easy job when things are coming on time. So like if you have a great tenant, you're even as a property manager and as an owner, you're making good money. There's no doubt because they're paying on time. Nothing's getting broke. You're in good shape. It's when the proverbial hits the fan where you're like, uh-oh, now we've got a problem. That's when a property manager really has to do their work because then they've got to hunt down the tenant, figure out if the money's going to come. If not, try to go through our court system and get them out of the house, out of the property, which is not easy to do, and then try to, recoup that rental income that they didn't make. So it's like anything else, right? It can go really well and go really well for years, or I've got, past clients of mine that bought a rental property and it seemed like every year something went wrong, either bad tenants or leak that, just went everywhere. They just never could seem to put it together. But I also know folks that have owned rental property for 20 years and the same person's been living in it for 20 years. So that's the thing. It's like anything else. There's always some amount of risk. All you can do is try to mitigate it as much as possible.
Okay, so it is also a job. It is also connected to some kind of stress. The amount of stress is calculated by the luck you have with your tenants or the building itself. But you yourself must have endured a bit of stress as you rebuild your whole company in 2018 after you had 2 heart attacks. Is that right?
I had 2 heart in 2017, I did 70 deals as a solo single agent by myself, which is a lot of deals. I was killing it. I was, sometimes I like to look at it from the perspective of sometimes we get a little bit, we'll say too arrogant, too cocky, and something has a way of smacking us down a little bit. And that's basically what happened. I rolled into 2018, king of the hill, new car, the whole 9 yards. I had heart attack number 1. Turned around and had heart attack number 2 the day after my birthday. And then at that point, they said, we're done. We're going in. They did a quadruple bypass. So by the end of 2018, I was completely flat broke. And I don't mean like okay, I've got a couple of $100 broke. I mean, broke to the point of in a week and a half, Wells Fargo canceled my credit card, canceled my bank account, and repoed my vehicle all in the same week and a half. It was not a good week, to say the least.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you bounce back from that big of a punch? A life
So
punch.
So what I learned and what I had never really done before was I had always relied on myself. And you get in that habit of, okay, I work for myself, and I really thought I was prepared. So I felt like, okay, I got a bunch of extra money. I've got money in savings. I've got money put aside if God forbid something happens. Clearly I was wrong, because if you're not as a solo agent, or as an quite honestly as an individual businessman, if I don't work, I don't get paid. Simple as that. And that's basically what happened. You can't go out and sell real estate and do real estate when you're laid up in the hospital for 3 weeks. It just doesn't work. And then, of course, the recovery time after that, after they've split your chest open. So I learned two things. Number one, diversify my income so I'm not completely responsible for it. That was a major issue. And number two, quite honestly, ask for help, because I didn't tell a single soul that I was struggling until the freaking car disappeared. That's when I called my father and had a conversation with him, and he was able to pay the debt and get the car back. But you haven't lived until you're, at that point, I'm 47 years old, having a conversation with my dad. Basically, hey, Dad, can I borrow one of your cars? Well, why do you need a car? Where's yours at? Well, funny story. Um, they came and got
Yeah.
it. So I had to ask for help with that. I had to ask another good friend of mine for help, and I had never done that. I've always been a put your head down and work hard sort of guy, and never asked for any help. And I had to learn the hard way that there's, whether we like it or not, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I'm struggling, I need some help. And if anything, if I had asked for help before they took the car, it would have been cheaper on my father, because you figure at that point he had to drop, I think it was $3,000 to get the car back, to where if I had just been, let's say, late on a payment, it'd have been, okay, well, I need to borrow $900. Borrowing $900 is a lot easier than borrowing $3,000. It just is. And that's, again, those are the two biggest things that I completely failed to do. I'm not going to pretend that there's an excuse behind that. I failed completely.
So asking for help sooner doesn't only help you, but also the ones who are helping you
Yeah.
to have a better or easier to help you. Wow. What a story. And then after all that vanished, what did you do? How did you get back up from that point on?
Basically, I think what I did was I took most of November to recover, and quite honestly, a good portion of December. And it seemed like it started as soon as I started making my phone calls, calling my clients, calling leads. It's almost like everybody was waiting for me to get back to work. So come January, again, I went back to putting my head down and working, and slowly but surely started to rebuild the business, being able to get out of the house and go help my clients with property, look at different things, do what I do. I think the other thing that I did that I had never previously done before really was just kind of get out there a little bit more, and be open to new ideas, and be open to looking at things a little bit differently. Because again, I essentially almost died repeatedly, and it will open your eyes up a little bit to life and to things. And I think at the end of the day, I needed that. It kind of pushed me in a completely different direction. Again, I still have the same sort of I'm going to say the same sort of kiss my ass attitude, but at the same time, it's added with a little bit of, okay, do better than I did and try not to make the same mistakes that I made, and just be honest and open about those mistakes. And I just started to rebuild, and just, give myself a little bit of grace, and slowly built myself back up to where I needed to be. It took time.
So with AI coming up and being on the horizon to take everybody's job, What role will AI play in the whole real estate industry? First in the States and then maybe worldwide in other countries as well.
So this is my opinion, and I think a lot of people my age, and you figure at this point I'm 53, a lot of people my age are acting like AI is the worst thing that's ever come down the pipe, and this is a terrible thing, and it's going to ruin everything, and all of that. I don't believe that. I think AI is a good thing. I think if anything, it's a time saver. It can do things that I can't do, and it can quite honestly cut things that I do in half. And I think if you embrace it, still keep your human aspect of your life and still keep things personal, you can use it to your advantage. And I think that's where it's playing a part in real estate in terms of it's a lot easier to stay in touch with people. And I'll give you a perfect example. I have a particular CRM that I use to where it will automatically text people and say, hey, this is so-and-so, and it does it for me automatically, and people will respond to it. Because let's be honest, nobody's answering the phone anymore. You know, I'm an older guy. I remember when you had phones in the houses, and I do answer my phone, but there's a lot of my clients that are 20s and 30s that the idea of answering the phone scares the hell out of them, and they're not going to do it. But they'll answer a text all day, even if it's from a quote unquote a digital line. They'll follow up and text it. The other thing with AI is I can take an idea and I'll give you a perfect example of that. I've been involved with REO and short sale for the better part of 20 years now, and I had to teach a short sale class a couple of weeks ago. So instead of me sitting down and writing that class out by hand, I took all of the transcripts from all of the short sale podcasts that I've done in the past, uploaded it to AI, or ChatGPT in this case, and had them take out all the best parts, put it back together. It created the slides for me and did all of that for me inside of 20 minutes instead of me sitting there like it's 1980 and I'm doing a book report. My name is Bob. We are going to talk, it took care of all of that. It's all my own thoughts and ideas because it's conversations that I've had in the past. But instead of me having to sit there for hours on end trying to put this presentation together, using AI, I was able to knock it out inside of 20 minutes. And to me, that's a no-brainer. So I think it will be used. I think it's going to be used everywhere. I think one of two things. I think there's going to be opportunity for new positions and new jobs and new roles, as there has always been. The days of in the 50s and 60s in the States, a lot of people worked on assembly lines, and then they moved on from that. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of struggle to transition to new jobs for some people, but I think, again, you have to embrace it. And if anything, it's going to give those of us that were around first a little bit of an advantage because there are certain things that AI can't do. They can't completely, yes, they can write a contract. Certainly. That's easy enough, but they can't negotiate that contract. They can't listen to what in my case, if I'm working with a buyer, I'm the one that has to call that agent and try to figure out from their words, well, how motivated are these people? What can I get from this agent? How can I out negotiate the other agent? AI can't do that. It can send the contract. It can make the changes for me, but ultimately it's still going to be me doing it just with a great new tool, in my toolbox, much like we've always had new tools.
Okay, coming back to the real estate topic. The time's right. You really, really want to start buying your own house, your first accommodation. What are things you should look out for when you look at different options for housing?
Absolutely. The first thing you want to do is talk to a mortgage person and figure out what your budget's going to be, what you can afford. Just because you get approved for a $500,000 loan doesn't mean you need to spend $500,000. Spend where you're comfortable. Number two, you should absolutely, and I say this all the time as somebody who had a very, very bad real estate agent when I bought my first house, absolutely interview your agent. Yes, we all, I have past clients that recommend me, and I absolutely love that. But even if your friend recommends you or recommends a real estate agent, ask that real estate agent some questions. How many deals have they done? Are they a good fit for what you're looking for? Are they coming from a perspective that they want to help you do a good job, or are they just trying to throw you into a property as fast as possible and move on to the next one? So I think that's 95% of it is absolutely interview. And remember, I don't get paid unless you hire me. The mortgage guy doesn't get paid unless you hire him. So look for good customer service. Look for people that truly have your best interest at heart, because that's going to make a big difference. That's where, quite honestly, where customer service still is important and customer service pays off, because you want people that ultimately want to be in your life forever. Maybe, obviously, as a real estate agent, you're not going to need me all the time, but I would like to think if I did a good job that you're going to refer me, and you can always call me and say, hey, I got a question about this, or I need a plumber for this, or hey, we're thinking about refinancing. What do you think? Or do we need to, is it time for us to move up to a bigger house? The kids are getting bigger, or do we consider, I don't know, adding on to the property? You should always have, I should always be that information person that you need. And I think those are your two most important things: is figure out your budget, and don't be afraid to interview everybody. The mortgage guy, the title company, the real estate agent, most of all, the real estate agent, because a bad real estate agent will put you in a craptacular piece of junk house in a heartbeat. And I've seen it happen, and it happened to me. If anything, it made me a better real estate agent long term, but it damn sure didn't do me any favors when it happened.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for all of the insights. Where can people go to catch up with you, get to know you a bit better?
Okay, so there's a couple spots. They can find me at bobtheagent.com, and that's also on the TikTok and the socials. And they also could reach me at What Bob Thinks. I also do some public speaking, some growth coaching, so I have some stuff there too. But I'm easy to get a hold of. Bob the Agent's pretty is pretty easy to find. And I'm one of those people that answers the phone, answers an email, Facebook message, whatever. So I love it when people reach out, even if it's just to answer some questions. I'm always happy to help.
Thank you so much for your time, and all the best.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And I will talk to you soon, my friend.